Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Elina Närvänen and I'm an Associate Professor of Services and Retailing here at Tampere University in Finland. It is an honor for me to be giving this keynote today on the topic of managing the wicked problem of food waste. And I wish to thank all the other partners and especially Unpar and Johanna for inviting us to this project and for organizing the great kickoff seminar as well. Together with my colleagues, we have been focusing on the issue of food waste for the past about 5 years in several different research projects. For us, being part of the Interfood Consortium will be a wonderful opportunity to create social impact from our research and expertise. And we aspire to also give our best knowledge and support for the Indonesian partners, with both the EU and Indonesian partners, to help address this problem and to find solutions together in the forthcoming years. Today, I wish to give a short overview of the food waste problem, that, as well as present a framework that we have created together with my colleagues to map out solutions for food waste reduction and prevention. So when we think about the problem of food waste, this is genuinely a global challenge. On the one hand, we also have a problem with food security, which is worsening all the time. So to feed all of the people on the planet, we actually need a lot of food. And according to the FAO, which is the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, the demand for food is increasing all the time. At the same time, we are also wasting more food. According to estimates, it might be up to 1/3 of all food that is produced, which actually goes to waste throughout the food supply chain. And out of this amount, already 14% is wasted at the beginning of the food chain. In other words, between the farmers and then the retailing system. And if we could fix the food waste issue, it would help us to also alleviate the food poverty and food security problem. Food waste is a multifaceted problem, so it has several different kinds of consequences, both environmental ones, social ones, and economic ones. And here is a depiction of the environmental impacts created. This picture has been created by the UN Environment Programme. And here you can see that it is not just the emissions, the greenhouse gas emissions that are a problem that come from the actual waste, but also all of the natural resources that have gone into producing the food in the first place, such as water and agricultural land use. And according to studies, if food waste and food loss could be prevented close to the farms, then we would be effectively able to address food insecurity and alleviate the stress on both the land and the water. Then on the other hand, if we can reduce food waste downstream at the retailer, grocery store, restaurant, and consumer levels, then we would be effectively cutting greenhouse gas emissions and thereby reducing the impact of climate change globally. Furthermore, wasting food is ethically and morally problematic. It also creates economic losses for the various companies that are involved in the food chain, such as farmers and retailers, restaurants, and hotels. Reducing food waste can thus be motivated from all of these different perspectives, and this is a good thing. It engages different stakeholders to continue the battle against the problem. Here you can see the FAO's depiction of all of the different stages in the food supply chain where edible food is lost. And FAO divides this problem into two sides, where the first side consists of food loss and the second side of food waste. It is generally argued that food loss is a bigger problem in developing economies and food waste in the developed economies. But we argue that both of these dimensions are important and they should not be neglected. So we cannot just pay attention to reducing food loss or food waste. Often these dimensions also go together. and they are intertwined. Food loss covers stages from farms to the logistic operations when food is transported to the retailing system. And there are several things that influence food loss here. At the farm level, it is a question of, for instance, whether the people who engage in farming and harvesting activities, are they skilled enough and knowledgeable enough to avoid losses? And do they have the technologies and the equipment required? Also, whether farmers are paid enough to actually harvest everything that they produce may be a problem that contributes to food losses. Sometimes it's more financially beneficial for them to leave food unharvested. Then at the food storage phase, it's a question of, for instance, adequate facilities, access to energy, and also pests and rodents may contribute to food losses at this stage. Access to modern packaging materials and technologies, as well as logistic capacity for transporting and distributing the food properly, may contribute to food losses here. And then when we go to the food waste side, so everything from retailers to consumer households, issues relate to how, for instance, food manufacturers handle the food, how it's being transported from factories to retailers, stores, marketplaces, wholesalers, and so on, and how it's been handled there. Retailers' pricing and marketing techniques also play a role here. There are things like being able to predict consumer demand appropriately, planning contract procedures with food manufacturers and farmers. And then, of course, restaurants and hotels also handle food and have their role to play here as well, as do the households that finally purchase and consume the food. At this stage, the different skills related to, for instance, shopping for food, planning for that, then also storing food at home and cooking it have a role to play here. The implicit norms and values that people have with regard to wasting food are also important, as are the everyday routines that may easily result in food waste unless people pay attention to it routinely. Thus, food waste is connected to all of these different actors and action points. This makes the problem difficult to solve, but on the other hand, there are many, many opportunities to influence it as well. So here you can see on this slide the EU's goal of reducing food waste. In the recent years, food waste has been raised to the political agendas globally. The UN has set the Sustainable Development Goals, where reducing food waste is mentioned as a particular measurable target. And the EU has committed to reducing food waste and has had several initiatives both at the level of EU and the nation states and also different regions. In France and Italy also already legislative actions have taken place. Here you can see a screenshot of the EU platform on food losses and food waste. This was set up a few years ago to gather together the knowledge, experts and stakeholders around the issue. The website contains a lot of information about the issue, also efforts to solve it, and tools and tips for different actors who wish to tackle this problem. There have also been several EU-funded research projects, such as the Fusions project, which is mentioned here, and a new project called Low in Food. You can see the logo of that project there. And our team from Tampere University is also part of that project. It has just started in December, and it actually intends to test the different food waste reduction and prevention innovations in different food supply chains. Being part of this other EU project will give us further insights also regarding Interfood's efforts of reducing food waste in Indonesia. Me and my colleagues Niina Mesiranta, Malla Mattila and Anna Heikkinen have edited an international book about food waste management. The book was published last year by Palgrave Macmillan, and it contains different chapters on food waste solutions and also an introductory chapter with this framework that you can see here. So we created this framework as a research effort or research-based tool to map out the solutions that are introduced in our book for the reduction of food waste. It is partly also based on the conceptualization of wicked problems by Weber and Kademian in 2008. First of all, food waste is an unstructured problem. So its causes and effects are difficult to distinguish and identify. And there is still no consensus regarding the problem and how it should be defined. For instance, how to calculate and measure food waste and how to distinguish it from other issues relevant to sustainability. Then food waste is also a wicked problem as it is cross-cutting. As I explained in my presentation, it involves several stakeholders with various interests. In addition to the stakeholders within the food supply chain, such as the farmers, retailers, and consumers, the political decision makers are also included here. The stakeholders, they sometimes have to make trade-offs to address the food waste issue. For instance, we heard about the reduction of plastics as a strategy to address sustainability in Indonesia. So if we pay attention to that issue, then more effort is directed away from any other sustainability issues that might be important. So we need to really balance between these different issues. Food waste is also a wicked problem because solving it requires continuous effort. This means that we cannot find solutions that would end the need to tackle the issue once and for all. Even if we continuously care for and pay attention to food waste, it will not disappear completely. Then again, the solutions that are found on the problem, they also influence other sustainability issues, such as poverty and food security. And the different solutions, they also might change the understanding of the food waste problem. So for instance, if we use food waste as a resource for producing energy, it may change the problem from, change the issue from being perceived as a problem to being perceived as a valuable resource for energy production. Toward the edges of the figure here, you can see the labels for the different types of solutions that we argue are needed. They range from changing how people feel and believe by changing the socio-cultural meanings related to waste, changing people's and actors' behaviors, as well as innovating different solutions like social and technological solutions for the problem. And finally, also acknowledging that actors and activities are to be connected to larger systems is also needed. This is one practical tool that you can see on this slide for developing and prioritizing solutions for the food waste problem. It is used commonly in the US and in Europe to think about which solutions would have the most useful impacts on the problem. So at the top here, you have the solutions that are recommended. The best thing, of course, is not to create any food surplus at all, trying to prevent it from occurring. But this is often too much of an ideal in our current food production system, which is very complex and industrialized. But if we cannot prevent food surplus, then the next best thing is, of course, to direct it to humans, to feeding hungry people, for those in need. If we cannot do that, then the next option would be to feed it to animals, either directly or through processing it, as we heard that, for instance, insects can be used to create animal feed from food waste. Then the next step would be industrial use. In Europe, there are these large facilities built to produce bio-based fuels and gas to recover energy. But that's below the other solutions that we can use. So it's not so sustainable as the ones that are above that. And only then should composting and then finally landfilling be used as solutions to handle food waste as a kind of a last resort. The order of the stages in this figure, they might differ a little bit, but this is the basic idea in the food recovery or food waste hierarchy. Here you can see also some of the example solutions that have been invented. So first of all, there are the technological advances that help us reduce food waste. Mobile applications that people can download and use from their mobile phones have recently been introduced to help, for instance, consumers and restaurants and retailers to reduce their food waste. For instance, this one picture that we have here is of a company rescue club from Finland that helps restaurants sell their surplus meals directly to consumers at a discounted price. On the other hand, there are also technological innovations in the food industry, such as in packaging, where this bottom picture here is an example of Mimica Touch, which helps to replace the static expiry date markings or date labels in food packaging with more dynamic system, where the packaging itself may tell the consumer whether the content is still edible or not. In the middle, we have solutions related to information providing and education, which is also very important. Unless people become aware of food waste and how it's created, as well as how it can be reduced in their everyday lives, there will be no momentum or motivation to reduce it. There have been several campaigns globally to inform consumers and other stakeholders about this issue, such as the International Day of Awareness of Food Losses and Waste, which was organized last year. Finally, changes need to be taking place in the everyday practices of people, as Jelle was also talking about, in households as well as in working life and in organizations. For instance, European retailers, such as the Finnish S Group, have recently been paying increasing attention to reducing food waste in the supermarket, and also through educating their customers about this problem. Then customers themselves and, for instance, social media influencers, such as food bloggers or Instagrammers, can also have their role to play in this problem by inventing and sharing tips and, for instance, recipes for reducing food waste at home. The food waste reduction has, in our view, been increasingly turning into a global movement all over the world. Here you can see some European examples and an Indonesian one that we heard about. So this Indonesian food cycle initiative has really done good work already with raising awareness of the issue among, for instance, brides and grooms in Indonesia, who have had their opportunity to donate leftover food from their weddings. As we can see with this example, food waste is also very much tied to the cultural context, which means that it is important to build on cultural knowledge in projects like the Into Food project. To conclude my speech, I have collected here some key things that need to manage the wicked we need to manage the wicked problem of food waste. They include multidisciplinary knowledge, cultural understanding, empathy and collaboration between stakeholders, education and awareness building, technology and innovations, and social movements. So I think we really have these things in the Into Food project. And it will be really nice and an honor to be part of this consortium. So me and my team, Wastebusters from Tampere University, are really glad to be part of this. And let's make a difference together.
Thank you. Thank you, Elina. Let's make a difference together. 1/3 of total production is wasted. So I hope that all of us actually after this session will think more and aware about our individual behavior with regards to food.